my dad worked in the oil business and was a cattle rancher in Texas. So they played off of that theme and brought my dad out to do promotion spots in a ranch-type atmosphere with cows out in the field and horses by the fence and all that kind of stuff, to sell the whole concept of the Hambrick family,
Welcome once again to the Talking Archive. I'm Josh Jacobs. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tell your friends. We have new podcasts up every couple of days. And you can also get notified about when the latest one is coming up. Now, last time we talked about working with Howard Stern, as well as learning method acting to improve his broadcasting chops. By the way, since your brothers were also in broadcasting, how often were you invited by them, since they're older than you, to come down and watch them do their work, be it on the radio or on television?
Well, I stayed with my brother in Cleveland for a while when he was anchoring the news there, and I would always go down with him. He and I were very close. He was 11 years older than I am, and that's a significant age difference when you're younger. Mm-hmm. It was not so much as when we got older, but when we were younger, that was quite an age difference. So he was kind of like a parental figure in my life. But I remember him when he got his first job in television at a small TV station in Abilene, Texas. And as a kid, I was probably, 11 or 12 years old maybe. I went with him pulling a U-Haul trailer and as he moved, he and his wife moved to Abilene. And so I was involved with television through my brother, before I got into radio. Broadcasting was kind of the thing that was happening. My second oldest brother, Judd, had worked at a small station in Texas, in Mount Pleasant, Texas, and then he went for a couple of years to Abilene Christian College in Abilene, Texas, while John was there. So he was working in radio in Abilene, and he eventually went to the University of Texas and worked at the KDBC, I think, that was owned by Lyndon Johnson, former president. And then he worked for the TV station there as well. So it was always kind of, it was always a part of my life. Broadcasting was, since I was 10 or 11 years old.
That's great.
And then when I went to FM 100 in Memphis, my brother Judd was at that time the weathercaster for Channel 5, which was the NBC station owned by Scripps Howard. So we worked at the same building, same broadcast building. So I mean, it was just kind of, second nature to me, Josh, to broadcasting. It was the family business, if you will,
Oh, yeah. And you never had to change your last name, because I know with Jack Nars and his younger brother, Tom Kennedy, whose real name was Jim Nars, they were both in Los Angeles at the same time, and Jim eventually had to change his name because Jack was the spokesperson for one car dealer or one brand of automobile, and then Jim was the spokesperson for another automobile. And so these automobile companies are, wait a minute, this is going to get confusing. One Nars brother, or, the same guys emphasizing two different cars, two different companies, and that's how they had to change their last names. You never did have to change your last name, did you?
No, but I did have to change my first name. When I went to FM 100, Mike Powell was the program director and on the air, so they didn't want two Mikes on the air. So they decided that my middle name is Keith. Mm-hmm. So they decided that would be a good on-air name, and I think there was an artist named Keith.
That's right. He had that hit 98.6.
I can't remember. 98.6. Yes. So that was I don't know if that was a reason why, but it is my middle name, so I did have to change that at one point. And there are people there that for a while, and I hadn't seen since Memphis or very little, still referred to me as Keith. Right? Now they don't, and I'm in contact with them, and it's Mike. But yeah, it was that was who I was. That's how they knew me.
Wow. And then you had also told me when we spoke on the phone the other day about how your brothers Judd and John were both on KABC-TV Channel 7 Eyewitness News at the same time. Tell us the slogan that they came up with back then.
Yeah, the local news, but once again, when there were only 3 TV or 4 TV stations, only 3 network affiliated stations in town, and it was before cable, any of that. There was a lot of independent stations in larger markets, particularly LA. But local news was the station. And all over America, stations were identified by their local newscast and local news teams, and they were the stars of the station. And the slogan when both my brothers were there was Channel 7 Eyewitness News. It's not like watching news; it's like watching family. And they even brought my dad worked in the oil business and was a cattle rancher in Texas. So they played off of that theme and brought my dad out to do promotion spots in a ranch-type atmosphere with cows out in the field and horses by the fence and all that kind of stuff, to sell the whole concept of the Hambrick family,
And Eyewitness News did very, very well in the ratings.
Oh yeah, they did. There was Judd and John were there. Christine Lund was there, and who was the silver-haired guy that
Jerry Dunphy
was an institution in the market.
Yeah, Jerry Dunphy.
Jerry Dunphy, yes.
From the desert to the sea to all of Southern California. Good evening.
From the deserts to the sea to all of Southern California. Mm-hmm. I'm Jerry Dunphy, and this is the news.
It was a big deal when he came there.
Yeah, those were the days, my friend.
Yeah, my parents remembered when he went from KNXT Channel 2 as the big news to ABC-7 because Channel 2 had this idea, well, Jerry Dunphy is 54 years old. He's over the hill. We want a young look, a young sound. And so he took himself and the ratings over to KABC Channel 7. And after that, Channel 2 was never number one again. Till this day, they've not been number one in the ratings locally.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a big move. There was some intrigue. Josh, I can't remember exactly what it was now that you mention it, but that idea that Jerry Dunphy was over the hill was John Severino was the general manager at the time at KABC. Mm-hmm. And he somehow, I can't remember the exact details, but he somehow started the rumor that Jerry Dunphy was over the hill. And their focus groups, he leaked it that their focus groups had identified that, and he was losing his luster, and he was on his last leg, his last hurrah. And Severino, in a very Machiavellian way, was responsible to some degree, as I recall the story, for the management at CBS mm-hmm. To come to the conclusion that they needed to get rid of Dunphy. And as soon as they did, Severino was there to snap him up, and the rest is history, as they say. Oh,
yeah. And did you, thing is, the only person I ever met from that Eyewitness News team that your brothers worked with was Dr. George Fischbeck. This was at the Pacific Pioneer Broadcasters, and he kind of invented the wacky weatherman, idea, if you will. And he was the same person in person as he was on television. As like, hi, Dr. George. Like, hello there. How you doing? It's like, can I take a picture? He's like, oh, sure. Would you look at that smile? And it was just like, oh my gosh, I felt like I was watching, I was harkening back to childhood. And he looked exactly the same, except he wasn't wearing his signature bow tie. He was wearing just a regular necktie. But it was a really cool day at the Pacific Pioneer Broadcasters. He died about 4 years later, but he was like 93 years old. And a couple of years earlier, they said, he likes to go on stakeouts with police officers in his retirement, which I thought was pretty funny.
Right. Yeah. There was the sportscaster there, Stu Nahan, was also, he was in the Rocky movies.
That's right.
And I remember, because I would go in and out of the newsroom there when I would visit John and Judd in L.A., and I, was just kind of hanging around in the newsroom with all those guys. But I'll tell you who was an intern. What was his name? Bryant Gumbel was an intern.
Wow.
In the newsroom at KABC. Yeah, right? Mm-hmm. So I was in the elevator with my brother Judd, because we did a syndicated among the O&O stations for NBC, the American Exchange, which was a news magazine kind of piece program. And so Judd and I both were in and out of New York as a result of that. And the story was that, and you wouldn't think this if people have any image of Bryant Gumbel, it's not one of a unctuous intern saying, "Can I get you a cup of coffee? Can I help you do this?" And he was doing that, with everybody in the newsroom, including my brother. Mm. So years later, after Los Angeles, Judd and I are in the elevator at NBC, and it stops on the floor, and Bryant Gumbel gets on, and he looks at Judd, and he looks at me, and back at Judd. He doesn't say anything. And then he said, "Can I get you a cup of coffee, Mr. Hambrick? Is there anything I can do for you, Mr. Hambrick?" He remembered it, and he went right back into that intern mode that he had. I don't know how many years before, but it was many, many years before. It's funny, and we all just laughed. And I thought that was pretty. You wouldn't expect that from Bryant Gumbel, but he played it off and made it work. It was funny.
Wow.
Funny deal.
Yeah, and he's doing sports these days. HBO, he's been doing that for like 20 years almost, it seems.
Does anybody watch that show? I haven't ever watched it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, a lot of cable shows get, very low ratings, and so I'm not sure if anybody does. It's got some informative things. I remember probably about 14 years ago, he had Bernard Goldberg on to talk about, they think they may have found what causes Lou Gehrig's disease. And he said crushing blows to the head to athletes, especially a lot of football players. And then Bernie said, well, people are saying, well, wait a minute, Lou Gehrig played baseball. He didn't play football. So what the researchers did is they went through the archives of New York newspapers and found out that, in fact, oftentimes Lou Gehrig had baseballs like a wild hit from the bat or, maybe a throw that went the wrong way, hit him in the head quite a few times. So unfortunately, they haven't found a cure for it yet, but they said this might be what actually causes it. So that was, I thought that was an important
and then
thing.
you fast forward to the, it is interesting. The assistant medical examiner in Pittsburgh that, did all the research and study and came up with and substantiated the brain damage that's done by two NFL players after so many years and so many football and knocks in the head, that the human brain, the head is not. We're not woodpeckers, it's not designed to take those kind of hits. when Emmett Smith told me one time that every play in the NFL is like being in a 40-mile-an-hour car wreck, as far as the jolt to your body. So you think about that from, Pop Warner football all the way to the NFL with those players. And I think I don't know if this is still true or not, but the average, I read some time back that the average age of retired football players that played for 10 years or more in the league was in the high 50s. And it causes all kinds of problems health problems with the body, not just the brain, but it damages, it's just not the human body is just not designed to take that kind of abuse. And they make their choice, and you're in the NFL, you're an infinitesimal percentage of people who play that game go to the NFL.
Oh, so yeah.
You're a star, an elite athlete to do it, and they're compensated well, all that, but there's a price to pay for it. It certainly is.
Yeah, I
think all things come with a price.
That's true, yeah. This is the Talking Archive. I'm Josh Jacobs. Follow us on Instagram at JoshDJ57. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel and get updates. And next time, our conversation with broadcaster Mike Hambrick concludes.